Hey everyone, welcome back. So last time, remember we were talking about measuring the value of relationships. Like how do we actually put a value on those connections?
Yeah, we were diving into those three key dimensions. The instrumental support, the practical stuff,
Yeah,
emotional resonance, feeling understood, and then fairness, that sense of balance.
exactly. Like do I feel supported? Do I feel understood? And is it kind of an equal give and take? But this time we're
Right.
going we're going even deeper, okay? We're tackling this big question that I know a lot of you out there are thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what's the deal with long-term relationships in this crazy modern world? Right. So, yeah, let's dive in.
Yeah, it's fascinating because if you think back, like way back, right, to traditional societies, long-term relationships, those were essential.
Oh yeah.
Like you needed
Oh,
them.
totally.
Your family, like, was your safety net, economic support, protection, even your identity, like everything.
Everything. It was like your whole world revolved around those close ties.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it makes you think, right? Like now we've got Social Security, we've got police,
Mm-hmm.
we've got all these systems that are kind of designed to support us as individuals.
Right.
So do we still need those long-lasting relationships in the same way? Is it the same?
Yeah, and that's the $1 million question, isn't it? And what we're looking at today is that it's not that they've disappeared, those needs, but they've shifted.
Right.
They've changed.
Okay. Okay.
You don't need your cousin to fund your retirement anymore.
Right.
Hopefully you got a plan, right?
Right. Right.
You call the police if you need help, not your brother-in-law.
Yeah, totally. It's like we've got these other systems
Yeah, it's
that kind
sad.
of fill those roles.
So in many ways, we've become more independent,
Right.
and that makes the benefits of those long-term relationships
Like less obvious.
less obvious. Yeah.
It's true. Like when you don't need something,
Right.
that you don't necessarily see the value as thing.
Exactly. And this deep dive actually uses this phrase cost effective
Oh, interesting.
when talking about relationships, which I know that sounds a little.
A little cold.
Yeah, but it makes you think, right? Like if you're already really good at managing your emotions,
Mhm.
at being independent, at finding validation, you might start to weigh those costs and benefits.
More consciously, you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Am I actually getting something out of this that I couldn't just
Get myself
get on my own?
totally.
So it's interesting. It flips the script because we always think of relationships as like this inherent good thing,
Right.
which they are. But
Yeah.
it's like this makes you think about the effort
Mm-hmm.
and the compromise.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this deep dive, it doesn't shy away from that.
Yeah.
There's definitely there's emotional labor, there's compromise.
Right.
Sometimes you feel like maybe even limited
Yeah.
in your freedom.
For sure. For sure. But even with those costs, it doesn't completely dismiss long-term connections either.
Right.
It's like it's hinting at this kind of hidden benefit,
Yeah.
like this deep sense of security that you might not even realize is there
Yeah.
until you really need it.
Until you need it,
Yeah.
like an insurance policy.
Yeah,
I hope
exactly.
you never have to use.
You hope you never have to use it, but it's there.
But it's there, right? When life throws you those curveballs, like illness, or you lose your job, or you got to move to a new city.
Yeah, all the big stuff.
That's when those long-term relationships they really become like a lifeline,
Totally. It's like all that self-sufficiency we were talking about.
Right.
It gets challenged.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
And then suddenly you're like, "Oh, okay.
You need people.
I need my people."
You need those strong connections.
Yeah.
And this deep dive also talks about another interesting thing that really affects how much you get out of that relationship.
Okay.
And that's how much your values actually line up with the person you're in that relationship with.
That makes sense, right? It's like if you're constantly disagreeing about like
Yeah.
really fundamental things.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot more work.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot more work. It's going to feel a lot more costly.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like, "Oh, I'm putting in all this effort and I'm not,
And not getting much back.
not getting much back." Yeah.
Right. And speaking of effort, there's this really interesting example in the deep dive about this couple, and they're pursuing fire.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Financial independence, retire early.
Exactly.
It's like not your typical,
relationship goals.
yeah, relationship goals, exactly.
But it shows how, those shared goals, even if they're unusual,
Mm-hmm.
can be the foundation of a really strong relationship.
Totally. And it's like it wasn't even about the money for them, right? It was about
The freedom.
the freedom that it represented and the lifestyle that they wanted to create together.
And what's interesting is that because they were both, working towards that, it actually made their relationship easier.
Yeah.
It was like less friction because they were both pulling in the same direction.
It was like a shared adventure.
Exactly. And it makes you think, you know what? What are your shared goals with someone you're close to? Like maybe thinking about that will show you some strengths in your bond that you hadn't even thought about before.
I love that. But what about those of us who aren't,
Yeah.
necessarily looking for that traditional marriage model or even,
Right.
super intense partnership? Does that mean we're out of luck when it comes to long-term relationships?
No, not at all. I mean, that's where this deep dive gets really, really interesting.
Okay.
It starts talking about these alternative models for long-term relationships that might actually work better.
Ooh, okay. I'm intrigued.
To some people.
What kind of models are we talking about here?
Well, think about, people who team up on a project, like a business or a creative project.
Okay.
The relationship has a clear focus. There are boundaries. There are goals.
Right. So it's more contained.
It's more contained, exactly.
Yeah.
And it might not feel as intense as like a romantic relationship or something like that.
More defined, right?
Much more defined.
Okay.
The deep dive also talks about forming these long-term connections with people who are like-minded for intellectual exchange.
Oh, that's cool.
Imagine having a group of people who get together
Yeah.
and just discuss ideas, books.
That sounds amazing.
No small talk, just deep diving into the stuff you really care about.
It's like a long-term relationship for your mind.
It really is.
But finding those people,
That's the tricky part.
that's the tricky part.
Finding people who really want to.
Who want to go there with it.
They're there, exactly.
Yeah.
But think about it. The rewards are huge.
Yeah.
Imagine how much you could grow, how many insights you could gain from consistently having those conversations.
Yeah, with people who get it,
Exactly.
who are on the same wavelength.
We're on the same wavelength.
That's a great point.
And this deep dive is really making us think differently.
Yeah, outside the box.
About these connections.
Yeah.
And it's reminding us that they don't have to fit into that one mold.
Exactly. They don't have to look a certain way.
They don't. And there's one more model that I think is really interesting.
Okay.
And that's low involvement partnerships.
Low involvement. Okay, I'm not sure I get that one.
So these are relationships where you have very clear expectations, very clear obligations. It's about offering support.
Okay.
Without the constant demands
Got it.
of a more traditional, high maintenance relationship.
So it's like finding that balance between connection and independence.
That's the key. It's realizing that different people need different things
Totally.
in their relationships.
Yeah.
And instead of trying to force ourselves into something that doesn't fit,
Yeah.
we can look at other options.
Right. That worked for us.
That worked for us. Exactly.
Yeah.
This deep dive is really all about making those choices consciously.
That resonates with me so much because I think we get so caught up in the shoulds, like, oh, you should be married by this age, or you should want kids, or whatever it is. And this is like
forget all that.
throughout the rule book. Yeah.
Create something that works for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Be honest with yourself about what you're willing to give and what you want to get back.
Yes.
Look at those costs and benefits, not in a cold way,
Right.
but in a way that helps you, understand yourself.
Yeah, to make good choices for yourself.
Exactly, to design something that actually works.
And to remember that it's a two-way street, right? Like
Absolutely.
you're bringing something to the table, but you should be getting something valuable back.
It's a give and take, and what that something is that can look totally different.
Right, for different people.
For different people, for different relationships.
It's about finding that sweet spot where the equation works.
Where it balances.
Yeah. Yeah, where it balances. Okay. So I think we've covered a lot of ground here, right? From like traditional models to like modern challenges to these cool new ways of thinking about relationships.
Yeah.
So let's do a quick recap just to make sure everyone's with us.
Good idea.
So we started by talking about how the world has changed and how those changes have like kind of shifted the way we see long-term relationships.
Yeah, we're more dependent. Yeah, we have different support systems.
But that doesn't mean those relationships aren't valuable anymore.
Not at all.
Right? It's just that
they're more important in some situations than others.
Yeah, like when things get tough, when we're not as self-sufficient as we thought we were.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we talked about the fact that there are costs, right, to maintaining any relationship.
That's effort involved.
Effort, compromise. Sometimes you feel limited, but there are those hidden benefits too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that sense of security, belonging. That can be so powerful.
And this deep dive made a really good point about how how much you get out of that relationship. It can actually be more if you're aligned on your values.
If you're on the same page.
Less friction, more joy.
More flow, yeah.
More flow.
And then we talked about all those alternative models.
Right. Yeah.
The goal-oriented partnerships, the intellectual exchange, the low involvement.
Yeah, different ways of connecting.
And the big takeaway from all of this is
it's not about fitting in.
Yeah.
It's about creating something that works for you.
Yes. It's about being intentional, making choices that feel good.
Exactly.
And realizing that there's no one right way to do this.
There's no one size fits all
No.
when it comes to relationships.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's so important for people to hear because we get so stuck in those shoulds.
Totally.
Okay, so here's a final thought for y'all to kind of chew on, okay?
Okay.
And this builds on something that Deep Dive really emphasized. So think about the most important value, the most important thing that you're looking for in a long-term relationship. Okay, got it. Now, ask yourself, is there a model out there, or maybe one you could even create that will let you maximize that value while minimizing the costs?
Something to think about.
Something to think about, right? Until next time, keep diving. Yeah, it's about realizing you don't have to follow the same old path.
Exactly. And that's what I really appreciate about this episode. It makes us question those assumptions we have about what a long-run relationship should be.
Because for some people, that traditional model, marriage, kids, that might be exactly what they want.
Right.
But for others, it could feel, I don't know, limiting, like even suffocating. And this deep dive is saying, hey,
there are other options. You don't have to fit yourself into that box.
There are other ways to do this.
And it's really about acknowledging that the whole idea of a long-term relationship, it's changing.
It's evolving.
It's not just about romantic partners anymore. It's not just about family.
It's broader than that.
It's about colleagues, mentors, friends, people in your community.
It's like it's expanding what it means to be connected.
Exactly.
To have those deep bonds that support.
And it takes the pressure off.
Right. Of trying to force something that maybe isn't right.
That doesn't fit.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for you.
Yeah, it's like find those connections that really light you up, that make you feel
alive.
Yeah, that make you feel seen, understood.
And this deep dive, it gives us the tools to go out and create those connections, whatever they look like.
That's such a good point, because it's not just about the theory.
Right.
It's about actually taking that information and doing something with it.
So I think as we wrap up, our deep dive into this, the key message is don't be afraid.
Yeah.
To question the way things are. Don't be afraid to redefine what success looks like.
For you and your relationships, yeah.
Be open to those different models.
Yeah.
Different levels of commitment, different ways of connecting.
And it's not selfish to put your needs first.
It's not selfish at all.
You're building those connections, right?
It's actually the best thing you can do for yourself and for the people around you.
I love that. It's about being intentional.
Yeah.
It's about being curious, open
to the possibilities.
Yeah, and really embracing all the different ways.
All the different ways
that we can connect as human beings.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive. But until next time, keep exploring, keep connecting, and keep those minds engaged. 5 times from Suck.